on this episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists.
In order to get qualified to do insurance investigations or claims investigations, you probably have to have some kind of insurance experience or understanding. I think that you have to have really proficient interview skills. I think you have to know how to get to the root of the question, right? And how to get the information out of somebody without making it appear that you're really prying. Personality traits that you might want to have are like being analytical, being able to be discreet, having a high level of integrity, and like an innate curiosity for figuring out the problem or figuring out what is really happening in the scenario. If we really think about it, no one should be surprised that a financial institution tracks analytics. And a lot of the work that is handled comes from patterns in data analytics, patterns in claims experience, high utilization of particular codes, high utilization of high billing, high dollars paid.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tale of Two Hygienists podcast, episode number 443. My name is Andrew.
My name's Annie.
What up, yo?
So happy to be here today.
Me too, man. It's a great show that we have for everyone today. It's, if you remember the one that we recorded. So this is the fun thing about it. Like we do these recording sessions, and then a couple weeks later we do the intros, and it's like, let's throw back. So this is the one that we recorded with Kate Murphy, and it was on insurance fraud. And everyone that maybe listened last week on the intro, we talked about there was so much there that we wish that we could share on the podcast. We wish that she could have shared on the podcast, or even with us, just to make sure that, hey, everything's on the up and up. She didn't tell us things she wasn't supposed to outside of the podcast, but there were so many things that I wish that we could have talked about. But even though we weren't able to get to some of those things, there were some really, really good takeaways for maybe like the amateur hygienist detective person that is like, look, I've been looking for a role like this. Like there is a role like this. This could be something that, you could look into.
Yeah, it was really fun chatting with her. Definitely, she gave some really good perspective and just alternative career options, I guess, for hygienists if they're really interested in that. But then also, too, she gave some insight as well and kind of just made us really just think about what we're doing and how we're practicing. And I think it's just good information, not to scare anyone by any means, but it's still good information. So anyway, so that was a great conversation. Be sure to tune in next week. We had also another great conversation with Dr. Sam Lau. He's a periodontist, and he gave us some really good perspective, talked about the industry a little bit, but also talked too about what he is looking for in a hygienist working for a periodontist, or different workflow things that we talked about. So it was a great discussion. Be sure to tune into that one.
Yeah, and he'll probably be back on several times. Just kind of the little nuggets that he dropped. He's like, oh, wow, there's another topic we could talk about. So yeah, you're right. I mean, so it's good. Make sure, come back next week. But Annie, this is the time where I have a couple of things I want to surprise you about. Things that we didn't talk about ahead of time that you have no idea that were coming your way. So I knew you'd love this one. This is kind of a quick throwaway one. Have you ever heard like the sea shanties?
Sea shanties? No.
Okay, well then this isn't gonna make any sense, and that's probably all off key. So I'm sorry, listeners, but okay. Look, so your homework then is now to go look up what a sea shanty is.
Okay,
There's
great.
some really good ones, and they do like these different topics. But I was thinking, man, we should have someone who's really good at this do on dental hygiene. And listeners, if there already is one out there, make sure you let me know about it. You can tag us on social media if you want, or email me, Andrew at A Tale of Two Hygienists. But that one was kind of a bust. You have no idea what a sea shanty is.
So a sea shanty, it's like a traditional folk song. Is that correct?
But there's a very specific type. Like there's a specific cadence, and they all kind of sound the same. But then they have some like harmonizing. It's really beautiful sound. And we'll listen to one together after this because it's really amazing. And
you're looking for someone to do one for like dental hygiene.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. Like I think because it's telling a story, kind of like.
Okay.
I feel there's so many things like that happen on the day to day that people could make a funny story about.
Yes.
It just
relatable,
probably is not me. I can't sing, as you all just witnessed, nor can I write a shanty. But I think it'd be fun. I mean, I could try.
Yeah.
No, actually, I'm not going to try.
No. Okay, this is good.
Okay, so another thing I'm going to throw at you that, again, we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but I've been thinking, and it's twice that this has happened, where, these Friday episodes that we do, people listen a little bit less than what they listen to, like the normal full episodes. I think part of it's just like, we need to shake up. And so, again, this is for our audience who's also listening to this, that, hey, if you have ideas for a shake up, make sure you let us know. But I was thinking about, like, what if there was an article, and it could be a dental article, doesn't have to necessarily be a dental article, but like it's almost like a book club too. And we've done this version, we've tried to do this version before, but like it's a round table also. So we say, okay, here is, something that are key takeaways, like someone's leading this is what the article is. There's a link to it if you want to go read it. So we're still getting the same tipisodes, right? We're still getting the same like idea behind it all. But this is something that's already been written, and it could be written like way back in like 92 or something like that. It could be from anywhere. It could be from medical. It could be from dental. It could be from, I don't know, The Economist. I don't know, just like anything. Like, I'm just trying to think, like, I think we need to shake up the tipisode thing. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, Marissa, I'm curious, like, you want...
No, not PubMed, not your boring crap that your research that you want to bring to...
No one wants
to listen to
that. This is the foundation of dental hygiene, okay? So I don't care if it's boring. This is what guides our practice.
I know, but no one listens to it. That's
fine. Okay, but so then, like, where do you want to pull something from? Like, that's credible.
Don't you ever read anything that's fun? Like, or interesting?
Yes, I mean, I do, but I want to make sure it's like it's legit and it's credible.
Well, I mean, that's less probably important than I think the topic, because we could also just poke holes in all of the stuff that they've been saying.
Okay, that's cool
that's
too.
what the round table is. So what we do need to know is like just more than me and you talking about this. Like, we need our friends and like people in the industry to like jump on the show with us and talk about it for 7 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be fun. I'm all about finding things that are like fun and interesting to talk about and poking holes at it or not, but getting other perspectives. I think it's great. I love a round table. I love hearing other people's thoughts on things. It also inspires me too. So I think it's great.
Exactly. Yeah. I think
it gives me something that I didn't think about. Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally. I'm all about that.
All right, listeners, if you have better ideas than that, let us know.
That'd be really fun. If listeners, if you have any other ideas for us, I think this would be something cool to incorporate on Fridays. So anyway, everyone, thanks again for listening. Enjoy this episode with Kate Murphy. I think you're going to get a lot out of it.
A tale of two hygienists.
Listeners, welcome into the interview portion of the podcast. We are joined today by Kate. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Are you excited?
I am.
Are you nervous?
A little bit.
Let's just talk about the nervousness. Let's get it out here. Now's the time to do it.
Yeah,
it's all good.
It's a lot. It's just having knowledge about processes regarding finance and insurance that you just not sure you want the whole world to know. So
I know it's hard, and we appreciate you taking this time. And listeners, like, we're going to tell you, like, this is the great thing about the podcast. Like, we're pretty darn honest about like how we're doing, transparent about stuff. And one of the things is Kate is going to hold some things back. We talked about that ahead of time. I'm sure you're going to have more questions for her, but some things she just can't divulge just because of the nature of the topic. And so, we're not really apologizing for that, but we're giving you a heads up that that's what's going to happen. But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell our listeners who you are, kind of your experience in the dental realm.
Yeah. So my name is Kate Murphy. I have been in and around dentistry for 3 decades. Surprising that I was a dental assistant for a couple of years. Went back and graduated in 97 from dental hygiene, Georgian College, up in Ontario, Canada, and practiced for 22 years in orthodontics, perio, general practice. I had some public health in there. Did it all and began to feel so just burnt out by clinical practice. So what does one do when they're burnt out? They go back to school. And I did that. I went back to school and I earned a postgrad in human resources management. And then that's when things kind of became full circle for me, because while I had a lot of experience with insurance and clinical practice, I was able to gain more knowledge and insight into the administration of benefits through human resources postgrad. So
human resources
Right.
isn't one of those things that I hear a lot of hygienists going into afterwards, by the
I was
way.
just gonna
That's
say
it's a little
that.
bit unique.
I know it is a bit unique. And the choice to pursue a postgrad in human resources, I think, came from just working in a family business and working as a mitigator in, business processes with, my family. And it was at that time, it was an importing company that I was working back and forth. And that's where I came from. I was really, but it made me become really, really keen that the HR postgrad maybe become really, really keen in group benefits and the way that insurance was administered. And so I just sought roles in insurance and looked for ways that I could learn more because I was really interested.
So the next step after all of that, you did get into some like investigative work, some
Yeah.
insurance fraud and things like
Yeah.
that. Was that a job posting you just happened to see? Like, hey, that's what I want to do.
It was. I was working just as a claims adjudicator and managing just claims as they came in. Now I did, handle some high profile contracts at that time and had to have, very specific clearances to be able to handle them. Like one clearance, I had clearance.
Whoa.
So they had to do it because it was a high profile claims that I was handling.
Yeah.
So, and then I would see other departments and I would see, the special investigations unit department. And I think I want to look for something
Wait,
like
this
that.
isn't dentistry though.
I was just
No,
going to say,
this is
I was like,
insurance. Yeah.
Oh, like, hold on.
Yeah.
Sorry. And
Yes.
I'm really sorry I might have missed all
That's
of this.
okay.
First of all, what's an adjudicator?
Thank you.
A claims adjudicator is a person who has specific knowledge about the contractual limitations that everybody's insurance plan has. So they know about sort of the details of the plan in a very intimate way. They know what is eligible, what is not, and they can decline or, process a claim based on those details. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So let me. Sorry, I'm trying to wrap my own brain around this.
That's okay.
Sorry, listeners, as we go down this journey for myself. So let's just say like it's like for in the States we have like car insurance, house insurance, like theft insurance of like art and stuff like that.
Yep.
So was it expected out of you to whatever vertical you were in, housing or cars or whatever,
It was
to know
dentistry.
everyone's claim?
Yeah.
Oh, it was dental.
Yeah, it was health claims. Yeah.
Oh, health
It was
claims.
health claims and dental claims. So in Canada, we use dental insurance to pay for most patients are very motivated by what's covered by my plan. And that's what they'll have done at the dentist. Yeah.
Okay. So you had to know like every company's, or was this one company's?
The contract.
Interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
You're-
Sorry. I'm getting back on the same page now.
I'm glad
Are
you
we-
clarified this because I was like, wait a second.
I'm
Are we
so
talking
sorry.
about health insurance? Are we talking about dental
Yeah,
insurance?
talking
And
about
so, yeah,
dental
I'm glad you
insurance.
clarified that.
Yeah,
Dental
and
insurance. Okay.
Yeah. In Canada. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, great. So now let's take a step back just again, because I'm trying to think,
Sure.
okay, our listeners listening to this might be like, hey, like this sounds like freaking fascinating. I want to
It's
do this
cool.
as well. But like
Yeah.
you went to more education because you love it.
Mhm.
What are the qualifications for someone that would go into this field?
I think that probably it's in order to get qualified to do insurance investigations or claims investigations, you probably have to have some kind of insurance experience or understanding. I think that you have to have really proficient interview skills. I think you have to know how to get to the root of the question, right? How to get the information out of somebody without making it appear that you're really prying. It also would be helpful if you had like a certified fraud examiner credential or accredited health fraud investigator credential. Those are two that, anyone who's interested in doing something like this could access, and they're easy to find on the web. You can look them up. But I think personally, some, personality traits that you might want to have are like being analytical, being able to be discreet, having a high level of integrity, and like an innate curiosity for figuring out the problem or figuring out what is really happening in the scenario.
I think a lot of the characters you described are somewhat dental hygienists. And
Yeah.
so I'm wondering, do you feel like hygienists are already like in a unique position to be successful in this type of role?
Absolutely. Especially if they have knowledge or interest in how claims are processed and the way
Uh-huh.
that insurance is the cycle for the claims. If they have interest and they know the fee guides and they know the billing process and they have an interest in keeping that ethical and the billing ethical and their practice ethical, I think that's part of it too.
Do you have any knowledge of like the U.S. system of insurance versus like Canadian insurance, if that's loosely the same of how the process is, or is it kind of a different, sorry, you say process.
Yes.
Process.
Process. I'm with my process. I think I'm not 100% familiar with the way that the American insurance claims are handled, not processed. I'm not. I know that I would get some out of country claims that would be people would have had treatment performed in the U.S. and then we would have to handle them in Canada. But I'm not exactly clear on the start to finish process for insurance claims.
No, sure. I'm just trying to think of like, as we walk through like some of these future questions, like how much of this is really going to translate to being a similar thing, or if this is maybe the direction that the show goes in is going to end up being kind of like more unique to what you / or someone in Canada might go through. Yeah. I am curious though, like just again, high level as much as we can. Mm-hmm. Generally, how do you get cases handed to you, or how would one get cases handed to them if there is suspected fraud?
Yeah, I think that if we really think about it, no one should be surprised that a financial institution tracks analytics. And a lot of the work that is handled comes from patterns in data analytics, patterns in claims experience. And so that's where it would come from. High utilization of particular codes, high utilization of, high billing, high dollars paid. That's where the cases come from.
And so some of the cases that you mentioned, what are the most, like, I guess, common ones that you would see, or common investigations that you're doing?
Yeah. Misuse of billing codes.
Sure.
Yeah. And those could have been to issues in patient care or patient safety or financial misrepresentation. It could be all of those things. Sometimes, again, like the questioning and interviewing comes into play when you're asking a lot of specific questions, and then you get to the real root of the issue and you find that somebody has an underlying reason why they are doing what they do, so it's really interesting, and you get to learn a lot about human behavior, which I think is
that's a really interesting perspective that you bring up about human behavior and what drives people to do things or motivates them to do things. I never really thought about this discussion, like human behavior as an insurance investigator, but that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's all about behavior.
So would a financial institution generally have like analysts that are looking over the stuff, and then they would say, okay, here's the case, you go now investigate? Or is it also part of your role to like just track people, I guess?
Yeah. And I think it's a little bit of both. I think that in some arenas like healthcare, they have analysts because there's such a high volume of claims, for that kind of. When it came down to anything dental related, a lot of times it would just be something that we would handle ourselves.
And so there'd be like some sort of like a flag on the account. You'd be like, hey, you know what? That's a lot of that code being used where generally that code's not being used. Or maybe, are there also like geographic, like, okay, in this geographic region, we are seeing this type of patient generally, or this institution sees this type of patient versus like cosmetic high end?
There are a lot of metrics that they use, and it's mostly, the billing of certain codes, the geographical area, the number of practices in one area, that those sort of things will come into play. Yeah.
So when it, like, if something is flagged or you're seeing that trend, then you're kind of targeted to investigate that. What does that investigation look like? What does that process involve?
Yeah, it involves, and I don't know how much more I can say about that.
Try to keep it high level, but
yeah. It involves reviewing of the claims experience, the data collected. It involves a lot of one-to-one communication between the organization and the provider in question, whether written, on the phone, email. A lot of times it might be legal. I don't know if I can say any more than that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Lawyers. Like I've dealt with a lot of lawyers.
I'm sure.
That's the stuff that,
Are you allowed to mention if the patients are ever contacted in investigations?
They absolutely are. And
Yeah, so sometimes
it's,
they can be part of it. And
yeah,
okay.
and sometimes it's verification. Did you see, provider X on this date and what happened? And sometimes they're like, no, who's that? or vice versa. It could be an investigation that involves calling a provider and saying, have you seen Mrs. X? And they are like, who is that? We don't have that person in our billing profile. So, yeah.
To what?
Goes both ways.
So we're going to keep asking questions. You just tell us which ones we're not allowed to
exactly.
talk
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to tell you what I can tell you.
Are
Sure,
you?
absolutely.
And maybe that can send it out. My post-its.
To what extent can the staff be involved as far as like either being investigated themselves? Is that a commonplace thing, or are we finding that it's mostly the providers are the ones that are the problem children in the scenarios?
Yeah. And I mean, it could be either. It could be if a provider who's identified through analytics and the claims. It could be, a tip or a referral stating that there's a staff member who's got a new car, and we can't understand why, and but so it could be that too.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Is it common that the staff are like? Well, I'm trying like hygienists. Like,
absolutely.
Is it common that the hygienist is involved, or is it common that it's usually people who are managing the claims and people who are managing the money?
Yeah, I think that in my experience, it's been more the providers than, but certainly it could happen.
Which also makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's business owners, and
that's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to talk about some of the, I guess, like evidence that they would have to provide? Is this documentation only?
Yeah.
Like what are you guys asking for, I guess?
And I don't know how much I can share and how much is appropriate to share, but a lot of times, if it was for verification of a claim, it would be, how do you substantiate that this took place? So it would be data that would confirm that treatment took place.
Like post-operative graphs or...
That makes sense.
Or
clinical
medical
like
records or
oral
sheets
photos.
or intraoral photos. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Those are the kind of things that were most frequently requested.
Which is why we preach so much about documentation and all these things. So
record keeping is the key. Like that is the key. Yeah.
Can we go into that just a little bit more? Because I feel like we do talk about that quite a bit on the show, but like I still feel like it's nice from like an investigative standpoint of like, okay, hygienist, so what kind of records do you need to keep yourself safe?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, pre-treatment radiographs, pre-treatment photographs, documentation of conversations that took place, the amount of time spent on procedures. And in Canada, we have a lot of time-based procedure codes where you need to verify how much time you spend. And that's only right. And anything diagnostic, I guess it depends on your jurisdiction, but anything diagnostic, does that have to be performed by a doctor? If so, has the doctor documented that they diagnosed? And, prescriptions for films, it can go on. And certainly medical history updates, medications, blood pressure, like all of those things are really, really vital.
Can we dive a little bit more into like the conversations, like the recording documenting conversations? Because I feel like it's not uncommon, at least for the practices that I've worked in. Annie might have a different experience, but we will happily record the like chief complaint, the things that the patient complains to us about. We'll record our observations of what we're seeing in the mouth. We'll record, several other things. And then doctor comes in and has a conversation with the patient. Hey, I think that you need this treatment for this reason. Yeah. So you put it in you put it in your chart, but a lot of times with electronic health records, you can't put the reason why the doctor wants it. So you have to mark that in your notes.
Yep.
What other types of conversations need to be recorded for our safety?
Yeah. Or for claims verification purposes. I feel like if the patient says something off, like,
as far as even just the verbatim, as far as what the patient is verbally saying?
Yeah. I feel like, I don't know how much of this I can go into. Like, I don't know how much of this I can share. But if the patient says something off about the billing, right? Like, I think you guys are billing me too much money for blah, blah, blah. Or you said you were going to do this and I wouldn't have to pay anything. Like, you need to find a way to bill this so I don't have to pay. or something like that. You know what I mean? Like if someone's pressing you to be creative with your billing, perhaps that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like we can all resonate. We've all, in my experience, I feel like I can reflect on a patient saying something like that in my experience. And
Yeah.
no, I mean, I would like to think that it was documented, but that's really good that's a good piece of information to include
It's
that
like
in the notes.
Yeah, it's like the CYA, moment that you want to just cover everything up, make sure that you've written down and that you're like, I can't do that for you or whatever.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So let's get into like punishment / penalties. What's the range of what that could possibly look like?
Yeah. So I've seen, an expectation if a dentist is found or a provider is found to have falsely billed or misused the fee guide, that they are expected to pay that money back if it's been confirmed that the treatment didn't take place, or anything up to a referral to a regulator. It depends on, the jurisdiction that you're in as well.
Who's enforcing that?
I believe it's up to the organization that you're working for, how they want to approach, and some of them may just decide that they don't want to pay claims to someone who they have performed reviews upon. They might just say, the risk is way too high for someone such as yourself with a billing pattern such as yourself, and we just are not going to pay you any longer. So it's been nice doing business with you. Goodbye.
Which makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's like cut your ties. Like they don't. When you said refer to a regulator, what does that mean? Like the
regulator in your jurisdiction that issues your license to practice. So whether that's the dentist or the board, whatever, in the US,
a board or something like that.
Yeah, in Canada, it's the college. It's called the College of Dental Hygienists or the College of Dental Surgeons in different provinces. But maybe in the States, it's a board,
like a state board, state dental board.
Yeah.
Would there ever be a situation where like law enforcement would come into play?
Yeah, I mean, I've read articles. I personally don't have this experience, but I've read articles where the RCMP, like in Canada, the RCMP are called in because
they're horses and they just kind of gallop into the office.
They show up and it's on.
I bet with their maybe nightsticks and
their
like,
maple syrup.
Gee golly, can you please pay this thing?
Stop or I'll say stop again.
Exactly.
The RCMP, I read an article about the RCMP being called in for someone who committed billing fraud against a dental insurance company. And, it was 6 figures that she had billed, and they went in and just, I believe she might have been arrested. So,
wow.
So I don't know. Yeah. But,
the one person in that jail, right?
Right.
One of one.
And she said, I'm sorry. And they
of
let
course
her go.
She said, of course.
So
for our listeners, RCMP,
Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Yes.
Mounted Police. Oh, love it.
But they have cars. Like they do have cars. They
mount in their cars now. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's adorable.
They do have cars now. Yeah, I know. I know. It's what we have.
So I mean, I think that you taking us through this journey, this story about like kind of how very high level of things. I guess what I want to kind of end on for this part is I want to go back to like the next steps for a hygienist, like listening to this. What are some like the key things that you think that we haven't talked about yet, like that they should think about if they want to go into this part of their career as a next chapter or something?
Yeah, I think that they need to seek out opportunities to work in administrative role of some kind. So whether that's, for me, it was sort of, I went back to school. I worked in public health, which had way more administrative duties than regular clinical hygiene. And then I just hit the pavement and tried to find myself a role in insurance. I just kept, and in the area that I live in, there are many insurance companies. So it was mostly easier for me to do that. But you just need to you can also upgrade your skills. I mean, going back to school in any capacity is always opens your mind, and who knows where it'll take you, right? So.
Well, I think about like hygienists are always, I shouldn't say always, but there's a good portion of the hygienists that are seeking alternative options or different directions.
Absolutely.
And you said you went back to school, which I'm always a huge proponent of higher level education, going back to school. But do you think that was like really pivotal for you to get into this position? Because I know you had mentioned hygienists getting experience like at an administrative level, and if they gain that experience, is that enough, or do you really think they need to be going back to school as well?
I think that they should also look at the Certified Fraud Examiner program.
Oh, okay.
The CFE. If you Google the ACFE, the American Certified Fraud Examiner organization, I've taken the course. I have to write the exam. I need to write the exam. That's the next thing for me. But that's a surefire way to get yourself into any kind of financial investigative role, for sure. Banks, whatever, right? If you can get to the bottom of any kind of like fraud scheme, you're ahead of the other hygienists. So,
sorry, another point.
Yeah,
When you say write the exam, is this the same thing as like sitting for the exam and like actually taking the test?
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to like write a paper or whatever.
I don't have to create it. I just have to sit
create
there
the
and
exam.
click the box.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to try and ask this
Edit that
question.
out. Yeah.
I'm going to ask this question the best I can.
Okay.
Feel free to be like, I can't talk about this, but you brought up a good point about like community health centers and things like that. Was there like just as likely, less likely, more likely? Is there a decent chance that they're also going to be investigated? Because in my opinion, private practices are submitting far fewer claims per office, where a lot of these community health centers are submitting tons of claims. And a lot of times, at least in the States, it's both medical and dental kind of are piggybacking, kind of depending on what the procedure is. Like they can submit to both claims and then, get whatever reimbursed. Are they just as likely to be investigated, or is that kind of a lesser done thing?
I feel like in Canada, it's a lesser done thing. And I feel like it's a lesser done thing because we have what I understand as being more universal programs for patients who are maybe marginalized and unable to pay for their care. Like we have a federal dental program now. And each province has, dental programs as well. And you qualify through your submission of your tax return in the spring. So if you qualify, you'll get, a notification, a card, and then you can take it to the public health unit and they're able to. And then also, public health units here where I live, they go into the schools, they screen the kids. If anyone's at a high risk for caries or there's obvious caries, they're given, complimentary care. So I think it's less likely that a public health unit would be audited because it would be more about, like say in Ontario where I live, it would be more about their provincial health auditors checking out and would they get to the bottom? Would there be false billing? Probably not.
Versus in the States, it's so state dependent. Like every state is different. Versus in Canada, it sounds like it's pretty universal, which, in my opinion, sounds really cool.
And super generous, and we're taxed at the yin yang though, Annie. Like
yes, on the flip side,
we pay high levels of tax, but and not all of us access those programs, right? Like you have to. It depends on your income. Yeah.
Kate, this has been fantastic. I'm so thankful that you've been on. Listeners, if you come to a point in this episode that just all of a sudden doesn't make any sense from one place to the next, it's non sequitur. Like we had to edit some really good stuff out, and I apologize. But if they wanted to reach out to you, how can they find you?
You can find me by email. My email address is murphy.catherine.134@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thanks for being on.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.